Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Seventh Lair podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kieran, along with Sarge, Emmy, Felicia, and Wildcat. How are we all doing today, guys?
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear it.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Excited for today's episode?
Yeah,
Oh, yes. 100%.
It is a day to behold.
It is. It's a lifelong dream for some of us. It's huge. We won't lie. We're not going to try and be subtle about the excitement for it. This is episode 10, and this is the M Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold interview. We spoke with him earlier today, and you're about to hear that interview. We're one day away from the minting or the pre-sale of the Deathbats, and we wanted to hear what he had to say. So yeah, we're a huge pumped, huh?
Yeah, it's just something absolutely crazy. Like, where does this even come from? Like,
Yeah.
But, you know, over the past 10 episodes, you know, we've been slowly just immersing ourselves more and more into all of this, and this just feels like the best way to top it off. You know, the man who's, like, probably one of the most passionate people I've ever seen in this space.
Oh,
No better way to
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So, you know.
For sure. So before we get into the interview, I know you guys are waiting for that, so we're just going to make you wait a little bit longer. We want to do like a couple of shout outs, not to projects like we have done before, but to like people that like weren't part of this podcast, but that helped us personally, like in our own mindset along the way, or even years like previous. So, who wants to start? Do you guys want me to start on that one, or?
Yeah,
You
take
can
it away.
start.
Yeah, so I need to shout out Terry Beezer. If you don't know who he is, go check him out on Space Zebra on Twitch. The guy is a legend, journalist from the UK, my favourite journalist. I actually met him the same day I met Avenged Sevenfold, which is like a weird story. Kind of funny. It's like I'm chatting away to Bees and his wife Charlie's next to him, and we're chatting. And I see Shadows and Brooks walks in. This is not the proper pop-up shop. This is a couple of days before where Matt, Val and the kids and Brooke, his wife and the kids, Kelly, came down. And yeah, I'm chatting to Bees. I see them walk past, and Bees like, you know, Matt's just gone past, right? I'm like, I know, but no, I'm not ready yet. But this is when I'm younger and I'm less chilled to the thing. But yeah, I want to shout out Bees for being, over the years, he got me back into journalism when I was younger. He got me into streaming, and like when he did his Mosh Talk stuff. So without really knowing it, even though this is not streaming as such, and it's technically journalism now because of the fact we're interviewing M Shadows, but yeah, he definitely helped me massively on the way, and part of his inspiration has led to me being the one to probably have the confidence to even ask Shadows in the first place about having a recorded like podcast kind of thing on NFTs. So yeah, B's nice one, dude.
Sweet. I guess I'll go next. I've got a couple of people I'll quickly rattle through. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to the lovely sinners and sisters of the Singate School, sinner.com. Some of you know I help out to run the site, and you know, the last couple of years, especially like the last 2 years, you know, it's been these people that have seriously boosted my confidence and gotten me through some ridiculously tough times. You know, I talk to a lot of them regularly, you know, always just supporting one another, always just, you know, enabling the best of everyone. And, you know, if it wasn't for those people, you know, always bringing me up when I'm having, like, the worst time on the planet, you know, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to all of you right now. And I mean, probably just because I'd be absolutely terrified, you know? Like, imagine me talking. I get quite shy. But, no, so massive shout out to all my wonderful sinners and sisters. And, of course, I have to give a shout out to my family, my wonderful dad for putting up with me spouting about NFTs and all this nonsense, talking in his ear constantly, just like, oh, NFTs this, oh, NFTs that. Surprised he doesn't get sick of me. Love you, Dad. My brother, pretty much the same. And just finally, I guess my late mum, because she gave me the confidence as well, and always supported me throughout everything. I wish she could see this right now, but I know she'd be so fucking proud of me. So,
Fuck yeah, man.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, well, I just have a short list. My son, Frankie, my heart and soul, he's been super amazing through every recording, pushing me to, be my best and to have fun with this. So, yeah. And then shout out to you guys, this amazing podcast team.
Yeah, man, we did it. We nailed it. So, yeah. Enough about us. This is not about us today. Well, it's about us as well. But yeah, without further ado, here's our chat from earlier today with Mr. M Shadows. So we're here with Matt Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold, 24 hours away from the NFT drop, the Deathbats. How are you, mate? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm overworked, but I'm doing good.
Yeah,
I'm going to file a complaint with the Avenged Sevenfold Corporation.
Love that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, pumped though, huh?
I'm good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So,
nervous, scared, pumped.
Yeah, God, mate, there's a lot of emotions going around with this. Everyone in the Discord getting pumped. I'm loving to see it. So, guess we'll start off the interview off going back to the early days with you in NFTs. So, what was your first point where you kind of opened your eye to the blockchain and the decentralized world, and who initially showed you the ropes?
Yeah, so I wish I had a better memory of how this happened. I think I'm, just like anyone else, where if you see enough things enough times, it eventually sticks. And because I'd been collecting crypto for so long and being very bullish on that, I remember being introduced to CryptoPunks. And I don't know if it was an article or if it was just simply being online. But the CryptoPunks were pretty much, I understood why that would be potentially, holding value as we move forward into Web3. And, I knew what smart contracts were, but I knew that they hadn't been fully utilized yet. I knew there wasn't really a good use case for them. And this seemed like the first time that I could understand, though it was the beginning, it was like, oh, I get it. There's this piece of artwork on the blockchain. At the time it wasn't actually on chain, but it was kind of sold in that way, that it was the first or one of the first things that you could purchase with your Ethereum, and it was, locked into a smart contract. And there was this thing called, digital ownership, digital assets, which was kind of new to anybody that had been coming from Web 2. As we all know, we pretty much rent everything in Web 2. We pretty much give up our data, and we give up, our lives and our personal ambitions and lives and video and music. Also, certain people can benefit from it while not owning any of it. So, I wouldn't say that I understood all that at the time, but I just understood that for the first time, these smart contracts were working and it was cool. And, I bought one and I felt really good about it. And that feeling is something, it's kind of with music, the same thing with music, where if you feel really good about something, or if you feel some sort of emotion, then there's probably, millions of other people out there that feel the same way. And the way I felt when owning my first CryptoPunk, I figured would probably resonate with a lot of people. So that was the first time it kind of, made sense to me.
Awesome, man. Love that. Cool.
Okay, so when the Discord was first made, you mentioned that a few members would look after the community wallet. How is this plan to be maintained, and what plans do you have for the community wallet?
Yeah, so the community wallet, as we know this, and it's interesting because tonight, the night before launch, I'm going to be releasing a letter to everybody, letting them know that this whole situation needs to be very nimble. It needs to move quickly. and new things are going to arise as the space develops, right? And so the community wallet idea was something that people were doing a lot of, but I hadn't really seen it implemented in a great way. Like a lot of times, you anoint some people that are deeply involved in a community, and they make decisions on things, and the community decides, okay, we're going to have a party, or we're going to do this or that, and we're going to buy sandbox land, we're going to develop this or that. But as we've seen over the last few months, rarely do these things happen, and a lot of times they're initiated by the initial creators. Like, for instance, the Bored Apes, you kind of want to have the creators develop this sort of experience that we've all grown to love from the Bored Apes, which, I don't know how I would feel if the community members were building out a plot of land. I'd kind of want it to be from the creators. So we have like a lot of, things we need to work through with the community wallet. I think that DAOs are a little more interesting to me, but DAOs also would affect or could affect the creator landscape of Avenged Sevenfold. So for us, for instance, we have a lot of things that we need to keep in mind, right? We have the broader fan base, and then we have the Deathbats Club. And if you were to say, okay, we're going to start a truly decentralized DAO, right? And we said, okay, well, what would that mean? Well, that would mean that the DAO would pretty much write the music too, because, they would be voting on things, and they could choose the set list, and they could do all these things that wouldn't be what we're there for. So I think some sort of combination of a DAO with voting rights, and we can get into this later, possibly like a token and a currency, and we could have a small community wallet, but it would have to be done in a way that it makes sense and makes the club better for having it. And so to get back to my original point, things are moving so quickly in this space. I don't want to be tied to a community wallet if there's better ideas out there. And this is sort of like going back to last night when I changed, having this closed off ecosystem on the private chat. I just felt, yeah, that's kind of cool, and it's really cool to have this little club, but at the end of the day, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot if people don't get to see, what this community is all about. Now, there could be modifications to it, so I don't want to say for sure it's always going to be open. Maybe there are private rooms in the Discord that we can go off into for certain cases. But to get nailed down to, in this space, you just honestly be shooting yourselves in the foot. So for me, the community wallet is something that, the money's going to sit there, everyone can see it, but to actually vote on something that is going to be worthwhile and be better for the community, I think there's better things out there to do that, better mechanisms, and we're going to be exploring all of them.
That makes sense.
Awesome. So, you know me, I'm a bit of an art guy. I love the style of the Deathbats we've seen so far. I want to know more about the process for deciding the artists for the Deathbats. How you guys decided on style and the included traits, and are there any ideas that you can share that didn't quite make the cut?
Yeah, so, you have to remember that when we started this thing, it was months and months ago, and there was very few people that knew what NFTs were, and there was even less people that understood how they were created. And so we reached out to, well, I don't want to say we reached out to a lot of people. We kind of put it out there that we were looking to do something, but nobody understood what it was, nor were they excited about it, right? It was like, oh, I have to make, 86 hats, and I have to make they just didn't understand the space at all. And so we got connected with Phil at He Creative through someone from our management named Alex Reese. And Alex works at Interscope as well, and he was a big fan of Phil's. And so I called Phil, and he's from the UK, and he knows the band, and he knows what we're doing. And I just basically explained to him what NFTs were, how they were developed, how they were created, and he just went down the rabbit hole himself. And he came back with, "Oh my God, I want to do this. This is so cool." And so we basically, didn't have a lot of options because many people didn't know what this was all about. And so Phil came back originally. We were going to do Deathbats, and they were all very traditional looking Deathbats. And, no, you know what's funny? At first we were going to do band members. it was like 5. It was a Brooks, a Brian, and this and that. And the reason it didn't work out was not only that having 5 band members would all have these interesting algorithmic situations that would come up anyways, because if you think about a Bored Ape, it's one Bored Ape, and they're all being augmented off of that. If you have 5 band members, the way the traits would happen would be very different and interesting, but difficult. And then you think about things that are traits of like Johnny's mohawk or Brooks's hair or the things that make us us. As soon as you took those away, they weren't us anymore. So it was like, okay, it's not really a band member. It was like, that's kind of just a person, right? And so what's to say that's Brooks when he doesn't have his hair, or that's Sin doesn't have his hair, or the Rev, right? We all kind of look the same if you really break it down and take away the traits. So then we were like, what are we, like, why were we going down that path? Obviously we have the Deathbat. So much like easier to do and so much more, it makes so much more sense. And it's kind of like if Iron Maiden was doing an NFT, would they do Bruce and Steve? And, like, they wouldn't, they would do Eddie. And so I don't even know why we were going down that path. I think we were being extremely misled by, I don't know what we were thinking, but, when we settled on the Deathbats, Phil sent us some stuff, and it just was very flat and 2D. And I just said, hey, we're just going to pay you for a couple of weeks to just ideate and to experiment. Like, just make a bunch of Deathbats and send us this stuff, and we can kind of get through it together. And he ended up coming up with this more cartoony, fun, very expressive version of the Deathbat. And he'd send us, probably 100 different drawings of things, and this is the one we settled on. And so, yeah, it was like a long process of figuring out what do we want to do, what do we want to accomplish with it, and then also just getting people up to speed on what they were even getting involved in.
Absolutely. Real quick as well, while we're there, was this the same process for the Into the Ethers as well, or was that already kind of set? We're going to go to camp for this one.
No, it was, and this is a perfect example of, like the space moving quick. Like, we had been in the space for a while, and I understood what people were doing with NFTs at the time was not correct, but Into the Ether was sort of our, dipping the toe in the water moment where we were trying to figure out what made something valuable and rare and cool. And so the idea of putting music on there probably didn't need to be there, but it was cool. And it's a little bit of a carrot, right? Like, it's kind of like, okay, you don't know why you're getting this, but we're a band. And this is kind of like, and just like the same way that real world utility is sort of a carrot as well, because I truly believe as time moves on, people aren't going to care about the real world stuff as much as they're going to care about the digital things, which will be very real world to them in a way, as the internet kind of comes into its own even more and more. But that's a different story, right? The tickets and all that stuff's going to be fun, but really you kind of need that stuff to bring people in. So I felt music brought people in on the first 101, and then, change the eye color, which was like a last second edition, which of course we needed that. It's going to create its own rarity. And then on top of that, it was just kind of an experiment, but things have changed so much since then. Like, think about us adding utility to them one by one. Like, that was never a part of the original plan. I didn't even know that was a thing you could do, right? But it's something that, like, it's a tribute to the space that you can continually evolve and do things that you see fit. Like, even on these Deathbats, there's so many attributes, not necessarily attributes, but like strength or mobility or all these things that we can add to it later on. You can make a whole game out of it, and you don't need to do it now. And so it's one of those things where the space, because of how open it is, it allowed us to actually make Into the Ether a cool thing. Now, yeah, we're going to turn it into a thing where you have to own Into the Ether to be a part of this special club with other things you need to collect. But that's the coolest of this space. Like, you're not getting tied down to, oh, that's what it is, it's done, and now move on. It's like, no, it can keep evolving into this lore and this very fascinating, like, puzzle of like all these things you can keep doing. So yeah, Into the Ether was just simply, let's put out an NFT, let's see where it takes us. We better do it for free because we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so going back to the Deathbats, I'm curious, was there a specific collection or artist that really inspired the birth of the Deathbats, or did NFTs just sort of seem like the logical next step for Avenged Sevenfold?
I think for me, the artwork, I'm super happy with how it came out, but it's always been like this. It's never been like the driving force behind this, right? I've always seen this as a Web3, like blockchain play, right? And I believe it's even becoming more clear the further we, the weeks that go on, like now thinking about fractionalizing publishing and, Web3 music services and coins, like to have like a currency and governance and DAOs. I mean, these are all things that were not being talked about a lot 6 months ago. And so the Deathbats to me was just, I simply saw that the possibilities were going to be really cool if we created a collection that actually meant something. And what I was noticing was that a lot of people there weren't people in the space that had a fan base that were dedicated to the craft of NFTs. They were either people creating something out of thin air, like the Bored Apes, which they did incredibly well. And then there was other people that would just kind of come in that were popular and said, well, it's good. I can make 30, 40 grand, 100 grand and just put this thing out and whatever. Right. And so there was no vision in terms of, these actually are really important. And it's going to be cool when somebody finally gets involved that can actually utilize these in a way that they need to be utilized without just trying to pull, utility out of thin air. And so it just seemed like a totally open lane for us. And the more I understood it, I was lucky enough to have some friends that were getting deeply involved as well at the same time, which is Joe, Chitaro. And, when he decided that he was going to quit his job and go full in the blockchain, that's when we said, okay, we got to just do this then. Like, let's experiment with, into the ether. And there was a mistake there. We had a mistake in the contract, and that's why you weren't able to sell them the first version. And then it was like kind of our learning curve, right? And then we just went all in and said, let's build this thing out. It's exciting. We don't want to be, and this is more of a thing of who we are as humans. Like our band does not want to go on stage at 60 wearing our leather jackets and putting Botox in our faces and trying to look cool, right? Like, but it happens with every band because they don't know what else to do in their lives. Like it's completely defined them and who they are. And they usually, if they're gonna move into new technology, it's usually, they got to be dragged into them. I'm sure most of these bands would rather be selling vinyl or a CD, and they don't, and they still bitch about the streaming stuff. And we've just never been those people. And in fact, we won't do that, right? We're never going to be that group of people. So for us, like, this is like a full on opportunity and an exciting one. And it actually lights a fire under our ass in a much different way, but it like pumps us up to being a band again. It's like, we don't want to roll into our older age and then just be like, that's all we do. And this is like something where we can actually be excited, put ourselves into it. And then as the other stuff evolves, we're going to have a better platform to actually share it with people. And we'll actually be more excited about it, which will actually be better for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear you elaborate on that because I know that some bands, I'm going to use Megadeth as an example here, their NFTs just sort of popped out of nowhere. And to be honest, I'm very doubtful that people like Megadeth are actually that educated on NFTs and didn't just get sweet talked into it, or if it's just PR. So no, it's interesting to hear that you guys, you care so much about, what you're doing with the NFTs and making sure that, that full potential, or as much potential that's unlocked. I find that very interesting. And
the interesting thing is, like, there's somebody in Megadeth's camp that knows what's going on in a way, right? So they were like signed up on BitClout before us. They put out that first NFT and they were doing things. I just don't think they were able to put together the pieces, but I think it takes a lot of commitment from the band. So if it's not Dave Mustaine
exactly.
and it's like a PR, say it's a guy that works at the label, which is fair enough. You have a great team. But if he can't get them to commit to things, then you can't do what we're doing, right? Like I had to like get this very far down the line before I went to the rest of the guys and said, you know, like this, like not Brian, but, and it's not that, and Zach had, by the way, Zach had stuff at the same time I did. Like he was buying Bored Apes and he was doing that sort of thing, but it was just a much more, you know, chill, like this is really cool, like, but not obsessed. And to be fair, like I had to come to them and be like, hey, like you see how cool this thing's going to be. And then everyone kind of went, you're right. This is going to be insane. And then we were able to do like the one of ones. Like that was never a part of it because I wasn't going to impose that on everybody. I knew that we could give out tickets and do these different things, these backdoor deals with whether it's Live Nation or VIP stuff, or send our own guy out to the ticket line and let people walk in with an NFT. The band doesn't have to be fully involved in that. But now that they're like fully in, I'm like, what do you think about 6 one-of-ones? And they're like, fuck yes. Anything we can do to make this cooler, you know? But
I love that.
Yeah, but if you go to them, you know, in July and like present this to them, it's just like, what? Like, why? And I get that. I get it, right? But you have to get it to a certain point before you present it. And I think now everybody gets it and they're very excited. But, you know, on Megadeth's, you know, to their defense, who knows who is running that thing over there, and who knows, you know, how, if you could even get those guys all to agree to actually take this on and do something like this. You know, it takes work.
Yeah, I was a bit sus when I saw the initial tweet about it. I was kind of like, I don't know where this is going to be headed. I don't have very high hopes about it. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and there's totally different views on this, right? So like, everyone really wanted us to use the Wax network, the Wax chain. And, you know, in my gut, I knew it wasn't the right thing to do just because I couldn't really articulate it, but I was able to talk to people in the space and they're like, yeah, it's just a gut feeling. It's not cool. It's not. Yeah. But then I was able to kind of forge my idea on it. And the idea is when you talk to the owner of Wax, he believes in this crazy huge ecosystem that you know, there's 1 million baseball cards and everyone has their baseball cards, so there should be no transaction fee because these things aren't really worth a lot. They're not small collections. They're not scarce. They're like Pokemon cards or they're like baseball cards. And I think Wax makes a lot of sense for that. It's cheap, right? You run it on there, but you're never going to have like that stability or that blue chip. Maybe you will someday, but it doesn't exist right now. And, you know, when you're having a 10,000 collection, it's a much more intimate thing. And, you know, you kind of have to, and people hate when I say this, but you kind of have to pay to play. Like if you want the collection to be treated with respect and you want to be people that are educated in what they're doing and they know how to put stuff for sale and they know what a gas fee is, then you have a different level of I don't want to call it customer. It's a different level of community member. It's a more dedicated person that understands, and it raises the level of the whole community. And it's not to say that people aren't interested or that people that, you know, don't understand this are lesser people. They're not. But when you're talking about building a community out, you know, Club 33 doesn't just let anyone, you know, in Disneyland, just let anyone walk in off the street and just say, I'm going to fucking join. It's like there's a level of like having to get there and be, you know, recommended by somebody. And then there's a price you pay. And so what we want from Deathbats Club is to be people that are all unified around the same goal of making this community, you know, like a priority in their lives. And so I think you need Ethereum and you need a more stable chain to do that, where I think Wax and what Megadeth's doing, it might just be much more for a trading card aspect. And one last point on the Wax owner, he sees it as like, hey, I'm trading a Funko Pop and this is my digital authentication, right? He's like, and it might, maybe you keep those somewhere like in a warehouse, but you're trading the digital authentication around and that means you own it. Kind of the same way people do with very high end art, right? It stays in like or like a hangar in an airport. People don't even put up in their house. It's worth too much, and just security. And basically you own it, but you don't do anything with it. And so I think he sees things a little differently than we do. And so those are hard things to articulate you know, when someone asks you on Discord, why are you not, you know, on Wax or something cheaper for us? And there's just a level of this thing that we want to keep it very, very, I would just say stable, you know, and very, you know, just a little bit cut above.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So going back to the whole Discord thing, what were your anticipations when first creating the Discord? Was there a specific thought process at first, or was it kind of just like a see where it takes off situation?
No, the thought process was we're going to roll out this huge collection and people need a place to accumulate, educate, and to start feeling that community vibe, right? We already have it. We don't even have, no one has Deathbats yet, right? Like a lot of people that are in there, it's like that's their sense of friendship and something they do. It's easy to pull up your phone and just get in there. And people are already finding immense value. And I think, that's one of the driving forces of NFTs has been these communities online, and it doesn't work on Reddit. It doesn't work always on Twitter. It's got to be this ephemera chat that's always constantly happening. And when you jump in there, there's a bunch of like-minded people talking about the same thing. Now, I know why bands don't do Discords. There's nothing to talk about. Like imagine you go to a show and you can talk about it. It's in the spirit. That's a Reddit post. That's not really something you just sit there and talk to the other 20,000 people that didn't go to the show, right? Or it's like, how long can we talk about the makeup you wore in 2018 or the t-shirt that you wore or like favorite solos, all that stuff? That's YouTube and Reddit. Those do a much better job of conveying that kind of community. But with NFTs, it has to be Discord because things are constantly happening and there's a lot of hype, right? There's a lot of fun hype. And I think, my goal always was to open this thing up and turn it into a full NFT Discord because I just don't think the other channels are useful. And we're seeing that, right? Like you go into other channels and it's like, what are we really talking about? You're going to get Courtney yelling at somebody because they're posting memes about something stupid and people kind of every hour or so making a post. Now, when a record comes out, it might be a little hotter, but that's quickly going to fade. And so I think with the NFT stuff, it's very important to have a Discord. And so I kind of understood that early on and wanted to start it sooner than later, which I'm glad we did because now it's a really fun place to be.
Hell yeah, it is.
All right. What can we expect to happen with the Deathbats Club NFTs begin live minting? What are your predictions?
Oh, I think the whitelist it's very interesting, right? Like, it's like anything we do in the band. There's a lot of people very worried about the price, right? Like, not the price per se, but just like, did I get enough? And they're really going to be watching the gas. But it's one of those cases of like, those are the people that are going to constantly be talking about it. And it's not really a good indicator of the whole situation, because the reality is I think it's 7,000 or very close to 7,000 people signed up. And we kind of see like, the 30 or 40 people in the Discord really talking about the gas prices. I think it's a very small majority of people that are worried about that. So it's going to be interesting to see if people just right off the bat grab their Deathbat. It's going to be interesting to see if people are really waiting for gas to get down. And it's going to be interesting to see how many are left over and taken into the public market, right? It's going to be, I don't know what's going to happen. I know we have 7,000 people signed up on a whitelist, but we might have had a bunch of people signed up hoping to get Ether and that didn't come in time, or they decided it's not a good purchase for them, or I just don't know, and this is kind of the exciting part. There's no way to really gauge it other than there's some really extreme interest, and that I hope people that take a chance with us are rewarded handsomely by just the experience they're going to have by being a part of it. But I just really don't know. I'm not sure what to expect. I really hope that we don't have any problems though, because it's understandable because the space is so new. There's not a lot of, barriers or not barriers, but like rails in place, right? It's not like that something can't happen. Someone could have the keys to our Discord right now and totally rug us on Saturday morning. I just don't know. Oof. So it's like there's so many things that are it's just the Wild West. And I just hope it goes well. I'd love to get past the minting process. I'm sure there's going to be people that feel ripped off, that didn't get the bat they want, or that they lose their keys and they want us to refund them and we can't, or they lose their gas because they didn't put enough in. And there's going to be the plethora of problems. The people that say they're on the whitelist, but they're not really. and they want to create FUD. You know, like there's just so many things that could happen that I guarantee will happen, and we're just gonna have to get through the minting process. And I'm more looking forward to just getting these things in people's wallets and then starting the process of what does this all mean?
Right.
Okay, so you've mentioned multiple times that this is the only Avenged Sevenfold NFT project going forward. However, have you had any thoughts on things such as Deathbat buddies like Wicked Stallions or anything of the sort going forward?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of thoughts on it. I think I think that if we're going to do anything, they must mean something, and they must add ultra value, right?
Definitely.
Like, and so the only ones I've seen done right are the mutant apes. And I think, you know, it just kind of, so I have this like idea where like maybe until we have a really good use case of why we would need it, because I don't want you guys to have to collect more things to get things, right? Like if I'm like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we dropped it to you and that's cool, but now you have to have those two things to get this. And
Yeah.
so so the sandbox is an interesting one where we might do a thing where we say, hey, and this doesn't exist yet, right? Like these things are going to take a long time because the technology simply isn't there. But we might say, hey, we're going to airdrop you guys, or no, how about we're going to give you a free mint of a Deathbat algorithmically generated for the sandbox, but we're going to make 20,000 of them, and we're going to put them all 10,000 on sale for 0.1 ETH. For anybody else that wants them, but they're going to not be quite as cool as what the Deathbat crew gets, right? And you'll get yours for free, pending gas. So there's all these things we can do where we go like, okay, you still feel like you're a member, but I'm getting mine for free, and this is pertaining only to the sandbox. But when you start adding on, I think the Kennel Club was like innovative, but a misstep. I don't think it does anything. And I believe that the the mutant apes actually was a very cool thing to do, and I believe it allows more people in the club, because we're going to have to decide as a club, do we want more people involved that partake in these things, and does that raise the value of owning the actual, you know, big boy token of the Deathbats? And these are all questions that we're just going to have to figure out. You know, we're going to have to figure these things out as we go. And so I hate getting too locked down on things, because especially people in this audience, they get very locked into one thing that I say, and then they just like hammer it home and nothing can move. But nobody like that does anything like this operates like that. You have to be able to make new decisions when new information comes out, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I don't know what we're going to do. That's the honest answer. I know it's an easy thing to do, drop everybody something, and it's like, cool, we did what everyone else did, but what does it mean, right? Like, and so until we figure out what it means, then we won't be doing that. But there are other things that we've said, well, what does it mean to be in a band? And we've been able to kind of pivot in things that I don't want to reveal, that I think will be really interesting that people haven't done, right? Yeah, so, because they're not bands, they're not musical entities. So it's just going to really come down to, what does everything mean? Does it provide enough value, and are people going to be pumped?
Yeah, because I feel like if it's unnecessary, it's sort of like, well, what's the goddamn point of doing it?
Yeah, like we don't want to copy everybody and just, you know, because I think I actually think the companions thing is kind of a failed. To me, it's like a halfway failed experiment. It kind of works, but it's not like, no one, like, I love craniums, but no one cares about the stallions. And I have,
you're right.
And I have a bunch of other projects that they've airdropped me or I've minted. You get this, this, and this, and they just don't move because they don't mean anything. Now, as a club, we'll have to decide, like the mutant apes you actually get in the parties with the mutant ape. Like, there's going to be a time when everyone's going to realize that it's really cool to be involved in 10,000, and everyone thinks we're doing this crazy thing with like these tickets and all this stuff. But there's going to be a time when they realize that like 10,000 people is not a lot. And if we're going to go do a party in Vegas or a private show, about 5% of those people are going to be able to actually come out and do it. And so the question is, do we open this up to more people and give them some sort of access like the parties and this and that, and while keeping the Deathbat token, you know, the main token, And that's what the apes did, right? They made way more of these things than they made, and they gave everybody a free mutant ape. So you're able to sell it to people that want to get in the club, but they couldn't afford a 50 ETH floor, and but they can afford a 5 ETH floor. And so there's all these things that just have to be thought about, and then we have to make decisions on, what's the give and take here? You throw more stuff in the market, it could saturate it, but if we're just bursting at the brims of people that want to get in, then we have to really look at it.
No, that's interesting. Thank you.
So it's been mentioned, everyone's very excited about the perks, and I think I saw it mentioned that certain perks may only last a few years. Could you elaborate on this and what other perks could potentially replace them if that happens to be the case?
Yeah, so the one-of-ones are going to be pieces of artwork that do not fit in at all with the collection, right? They're going to be things we've either hand-drawn or things we've parodied, or, so they're obviously not going to look like Deathbats. So it's going to be very clear that they're already going to be worth, in my mind, like if you look at Grumplin's, one-of-ones, they're astronomical prices, and there is no utility on them, but they're just so random compared to the rest of the project that you're really fucking cool if you have one, right? And so that alone is going to be really cool. And what we did was we took this from Gary Vee, and I was talking to his people about this because I was interested. I was like, well, what if I'm like 90 and some dude's like, dude, no, you owe me a round of golf. And I'm like, I'm just fucking simply not doing it, And so he's like, what we're doing, and I thought it was smart, especially with the one-of-ones, because the tickets for life, all that stuff, that's fine, right? If the band ceased to exist and we're not playing any more shows, then you understand that you have tickets for life, but there's no shows, right? We have meet and greets, but they're not in my city. You don't expect us to fly to your city to meet you. Like, you understand the concept of what these things are, so they can go for life. It's not a big deal, right? And but the one-of-ones were basically like, what if let's go back to Gary Vee's people. They said that he's doing everything for 3 years, and then if he's having fun doing it and it's working out for everybody and everyone wants him to, he will extend it for another 3 years. But if something's not working, then he can change it, right? So he could be like, okay, it's golf for the first 3 years, and then now I'm just going to do a dinner party, and that's going to be what it's going to be for the next 3 years. And then, after 3 years, he goes, you know what? Most of the people I met during that dinner party really sucked, and I don't want to hang out with them anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. But it's very plain as day. Like, these one-of-ones are just something fun we're doing, but we don't want to lock ourselves into making, a miserable time if people aren't enjoying it. I suspect we'll just keep doing it until we can't do it anymore. But I don't want to promise that because, there's no need to promise that. Just people understand what they're getting. They're getting an ultra rare NFT that is completely different from the rest of the collection, and they're getting, hopefully some perks that they would like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the last thing you want is people to, whether they mint them or if they buy them on secondary, get all excited about it, and then, you guys go, hey, listen, we just either can't or just do not want to do this anymore, and then they start whining about it,
Yeah, so we're building in a back end where people can see how much stuff has been redeemed, what years it's been redeemed, how much it has left on it. And then everyone, listen, there's going to be a bunch of legal stuff put up on the website, right? And there's going to be things protecting us. Like, if you're a fucking asshole and you have tickets for life, or not tickets, but meet and greets for life, like, we're not going to put ourselves in harm's way to fucking, go, oh my God, this guy's got a token, we have to meet him again, right? Like, there's going to be we're not going to be jerks at all. In fact, we're giving up the IP on these things, which is already making our lawyers and everyone want to kill us. But, but there's a line that we're going to draw where we have some sort of protection against things. And people are going to have to understand that if you buy this token and you go check it out on the site and there's 1 year left on golf, and I haven't what would be called, done it, extended it, right? Re-extended this thing for another 3 years, then you're taking a chance, right? You're taking a total gamble if I'm going to re-extend this thing for another 3 years, which in this space, people love to do anyways. So, but I can definitely see people, listen, people are going to complain about everything. They're going to complain about everything. We can explain this till we're blue in the face, and then they're going to go, oh my God, didn't fucking extend it. Oh my God, I paid 5 ETH for this or whatever it is. It's like, people just need to pay attention. So that's one thing will be pretty obvious, that these things last for three years.
Yeah, I suppose that comes with the territory with NFTs. All of this is such a huge new world to everyone. I mean, I got into this 6 months ago. I'm still learning new stuff every single day, whether it's in the Discord or just chatting to people on Twitter. There is so much to it. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it's continuing to evolve, and it's just, you got to stay on top of it, because new ideas, new use cases every day. It's crazy.
Absolutely. It's fast-moving space.
Yeah.
For real.
Awesome.
So, moving away from the band specifically, the band members, but something close enough. We've seen that your lovely wife Val is into NFTs too, so I have to ask the question, is there any potential of St. Owen merch being incorporated into the Deathbats?
We've thrown some ideas around. So one of the things we wanted to do for one of the care packages was like recreate one of the sunglasses the Deathbats are wearing. And so if we did that, it'd be like, obviously tap them to do it. We were also thinking about throwing in a token that they could do airdrops for us. And they're thinking about doing their own token, right? Like they're thinking about, like, what if we had 10 tokens and we donated, like there's a charity aspect, and then we were able to give people, maybe sunglasses that never made it to production, or what, like they're ideating on things, which I think all companies are. So yeah, I mean, the door is always open to anything. Like I said in the beginning, like I'm probably going to cringe in 6 months listening back to this, because the whole space will be so different, and we'll be like, oh my God, like why were we thinking so narrowly? And I think, so like all these things, like anything can happen, and that's why it's so fun, right? So that would be my answer on that.
Yeah, I mean, you, with that reply just there, kind of gives us, like Wildcat mentioned before, that we've been in the game for like 6 months. A lot of us discovered you through the Space Zebra chat with Bees, who I actually gave a shout out to the beginning of this podcast. But to show that you've been in it for years and you're still learning all the way through is obviously pretty good to hear from us. Yeah,
man. I mean, I think most of these use cases that we've been talking about are all pretty new ideas, and they take people taking a chance and implementing them, and then also, executing them. And once one person nails one thing, or like a DAO is successful, or a governance coin is successful, or this or that, then it's off to the races, right? And it's one of these things where you just gotta continue to put your eggs into really high quality, high usefulness situations. So for us, we're just talking purely about the collaborations we do, the kind of merch we offer. It's going to be completely different than Avenged Sevenfold. It's going to be what we really want to do, right? Like when you look at I guess the point of what I'm saying is that everything has to matter. And as we try these new things, it's going to be our bullshit meter and our radar to what is going to be useful, what are people talking about this week that's actually important, and what's just going to kind of fall by the wayside. And that's kind of what our job's going to be, right? Like, don't put too many resources into some shit idea that's like la la land idealistic bullshit it's not ready yet. And then what things are like actually something that are tangible that we can actually execute on, and everybody, all 10,000 people are going to find lots of value in. And so that's kind of like the waters we're swimming in right now. And so that's kind of like what we're thinking about.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely the way to be done. Cool.
Okay. Going back to minting, I think I heard you say if not all of them are minted, they'll be going into the public. Goth Girlfriends have the Black Casino. Is there any thoughts of doing something like that where you have a point system where you could earn a free Deathbats NFT?
I highly doubt we'll get there. I think these things will sell out very quickly.
Okay.
yeah, I just think, let's put it this way, Cam's Wall Street Bulls sold out in 20 minutes and they had 1,600 people on the wait list. We have 7,500. It's going to be around 7,500. And then I have a lot of friends in this space that want to buy lots of these. So I just think there's no way we get to that point to where we're giving them out to people that simply weren't interested enough to get them, right? I am going to hold some back though for people that have been, with us for a long time in countries like Brazil and Southeast Asia that I'm personally going to buy and like gift them. But that's because I feel like there is obviously an unfair structure in terms of some, countries economically, this is like a big ask, right? But there's people that have had, Twitters or webzines or whatever it is that have been dedicated to us for a long time. So I'm going to, reach out to some of those people, but I want people that are in this thing that have a little bit of skin in the game and they really want to be here. And I think giveaways are fine, but I just don't think we'll ever get to that point.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good guy,
love
Matt,
that.
on that. Good guy.
Definitely speak to a few Brazilians in the Avenged Sevenfold and Drinks with Johnny Discord. So yeah, I'd love to hear that. Especially shout out to Gabby there. Okay, so the Seventh Lair podcast, which you're obviously on now, was formed by the 5 of us in the Avenged Sevenfold Discord as a community project. You've mentioned multiple times that the community is a huge part of what to come from Deathbats. What do you see happening within the community over the next few years, per se?
Yeah, I feel, listen, I think I'm talking to a lot of people now that are issuing coins and governance, right? And I think there's a way to do it right. I don't think that we are in a position until at least 18 months to 2 years out it might come quicker, right? But there's a reason why the smart ones like the Bored Apes haven't done anything yet. And they've talked about it, but they haven't done anything yet. I think the community at some point will be rewarded for being a part of the community, either financially or, I don't know what the word would be, but we would be giving governance to them, right? Like they would have some sort of pull. Now, one thing that we have to straddle is the larger Avenged Sevenfold fan base. So we would have to kind of separate things that, make sense that only affect the Deathbats Club as opposed to the overall. I actually think the community is going to grow into its own organic thing. It's going to completely separate itself from Avenged Sevenfold. I think records will be something that some people listen to and some will be completely irrelevant. I think there'll be shows that come through people's cities that are part of Deathbats Club that simply don't want to go to a live show. I think there'll be people that are there for the gaming aspect, the tokenomics. I think they'll be there for the community that's been built there. And I think it'll completely separate itself and completely revolutionize or reinvent what it means to be a community / artist / entertainment entity. So I think that, right now we come together for the love of music and a certain type of music, but I can see people falling out of love with the music, but staying in love with their community, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for real. I get you. I mean, the idea of falling out of love with the music is hard to take in right now, but I totally see what the point you're saying is.
Well, we all change, right? And the thing is, I don't listen to Guns N' Roses. I probably haven't listened to Guns N' Roses in a year. But they're one of my favorite bands, and they'll never not be one of my favorite bands. And probably in 3 years, it's all I'll listen to. And so I think people get really emotional about the music they listen to, and they get like, oh, just because I don't listen to that. I'm on a huge NoFX kick right now, right? I hadn't listened to NoFX in 6 years. And now I'm back listening to NoFX everywhere I go, everything I do. It's just one of those things that's embedded so deeply into us that when people go oh, I don't like that band anymore, it's just bullshit. You didn't nothing changed. You just moved on to other things, and then that little piece of your heart or whatever it was, you'll connect back with that at some other point, whether it's for nostalgia or simply you'll find something new that you like about it, or you've just gone full circle. And so all that talk's crazy, but I think the community will be one thing that people don't necessarily want to fall out of so easily.
Yeah, for real.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to close the interview off for today's episode, and I'm just putting on the spot here, as a Seventh Lair exclusive, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm just really, I'm really being cautious with my words at this point, just because I like I said, I'm already seeing people get very like set in stone about certain things, and we have to have the trust of the community that we're not making decisions to backtrack on things. We're simply looking at things happening at this moment, this day and time, and sometimes better decisions need to be made. So it's almost like, you know, when we write a song or put out a record, every time we do that and people get the product, they're either shocked at it or surprised at it. And that's a big reason why a lot of people like the band. They like that it changes up so much, and that it kind of gives them like a storybook of where we've been in our life for the last year or 2 years or whatever. And that's just the way I am, and it's the way we operate. And the Deathbats Club is going to operate the same way, but it's more of like a real-time basis. So you're going to see wacky things come out of my fingers when I'm typing or out of my mouth when I'm talking, because I'm constantly ideating and I'm also constantly changing directions. And it's not because it's simply the adventure to try and do what's right and do it with the amount of information that I have at the moment. And so, you know, I'm seeing already, you know, when we're too open with things, people get very stuck on things that aren't important anymore, especially when looking at a broader scheme. And so I'm interested to see how this plays out, but I definitely want to kind of keep things more tight-lipped, only because people just get so wrapped up in like one specific thing, and then it's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that's not going to be there, or I don't know what a DAO is, but I want, you know, this thing I'm in is they do a community wallet and we had a party. It's like, okay, that's great, but we're going bigger here. We're really going to go bigger here. And so I think that, you know, I'm just going to keep kind of my cards closer to my chest, but I think, you know, that's the way to go. You're going to have some wild ups and downs is all I'll say with this whole thing. It's going to be pretty crazy, just only because of the way we think.
Sure. Very respectable answer, to be honest.
We're here for the wild ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we sure are.
Everyone's there for the wild ride until something happens that they don't like. That's what I've always thought is funny. Like there's so many people that are like that have been on board for every record, and then the new one comes out, no matter what it is, they're like, oh, this is ridiculous. This is terrible. I was fucking cool with, you know, this and this, but this is bullshit. And it's so funny because it's like you'll always reach that threshold of how much are people really willing to give us the leash? You know, like how much are you really willing to let us go? Because everyone has a breaking point. But I think if you stick around long enough, think about this. The NFTs are a breaking point for a lot of people. Like they're just fucking done. They're like, they never talk to us about music, which we never have. And then they're trying to sell us a scam, and they're trying to do this. And then it's like, but at the end of the day, you telling me that when this thing shows up on your fucking Spotify, you're not going to press play? Like you're that over it? There's no fucking way. Like,
Exactly.
no. Yeah, so it's like one of those things, like to keep in perspective, like, yes, we're radically changing, we're radically moving around. We're not doing anything other than what we feel is the right thing. It's coming from a good spot, and we want to do it right. But we are sporadic. I get it. And so this is going to be just an extension of that, and I think it's going to be fun. And I think we have lots of roadblocks ahead, but I also think we have a lot of really interesting things ahead. So yeah, that's that. I know about as much as you guys do at this point. We're just kind of flying, like going for it, you know? It's pretty fun.
Yeah. I like that idea that we're all in this together now. We're all kind of learning things at the same time. It makes it just feel more like a community. It's not just, oh, you've got the top dogs and then everyone down here on the floor, like, what is going on? It's all inclusive.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely an experiment. And I think it's going to be, I mean, it's complete. And people, like, I always think, why wasn't I involved in social media in Web 2? And there was just something that was really icky to me about it. I thought it was and I understand what it was now. It was the idea of putting yourself out there and everyone benefits from it but you. And all it does is really get you in trouble, right? You put one thing out that someone's got a problem with it, you respond to them, and then a bunch of people have a problem. Like, you can pick holes in anything. And I think what's so fascinating about Web3 and the reason I want to be involved in it is because it's not any of that stuff. Now, I communicate on Twitter and I can communicate on Discord in Web2 formats that are very good to Web3, But I think in the future, being able to kind of choose your own destiny, governance, you know, when we eventually roll out fractionalization of publishing, token holders are, you know, hopefully at the time making, you know, trickle down royalties based off of how well the band does. These are such interesting ideas, and it takes away all that power from Web 2. And I think, but right now we're just like in a stormy ocean, right? It's like no one's got a fucking paddle to save ourselves. We just have to seriously just like try to figure out the best way to swim and just go do it together. And there's going to be problems, and there's going to be awesome times, and it's just going to be really exciting. Like we're on the edge of this frontier, and it's going to dictate how everybody does business from now on. And it's kind of fun to be in the front of it. You know, I'm sure we're going to look back and we're going to be like, whoa, we were really fucking stupid for that, and that. But just like anything, right? You look at yourself when you're in the 80s and you get, or like some goofy clothes you were wearing when you were younger. It's going to be like that. But we're the ones figuring it out, you know? And so it's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, we're all so pumped, man. One day away. Deathbats drop pre-sale tomorrow. And that closes us off. So yeah, going to stop the recording. So thank you, Shadows. Wow, what an interview. That was genuinely incredible. Learned a lot. Still learning things this late on. Shadows giving us some of the little details there and keeping his mouth shut on other parts. You got to respect it. Guys, that was sick. Great work.
That was
incredible.
Yeah.
What an interview.
Yeah, pumped for that. So, yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed it. We just obviously want to do a little bit more thanking at the end because we can. Want to shout out to the community that's been in the NFT space with the Avenged Sevenfold Discord since, July, and it's been growing ever since, of course. We've hit like 35k fans now in the Discord. Got to throw out a special thanks to the mods, Jotaro, Courtney, Deformance, and Speedy, the legends that they are. And of course, we've got to thank the band for giving us this platform within their Discord, and you know, making some pretty sick music is pretty helpful too. So yeah, thanks to all those people. So
cheers, guys.
With great times like today, there comes a bit of bitter news, but we're actually saying this quite happily. I think this episode 10 it ends on the perfect note, and it ends literally. We're going to keep the door open for potential stuff in the future, but this is the last episode of the Seventh Lair podcast. Never say never. We might do like a one-off special at some point, or if something happens down the line, we're not going to say it's never happening again. But as a bi-weekly or anything podcast, we are done here, and what a perfect way to end it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Let's think of what we've achieved over this time, guys. Like when we started off with just my idea to Shadows about starting, let's do some videos in the Discord or like some live things, and he was like, yeah, record it, and that sparked something, and then we got this team together, and yeah, we've nailed it. We've gone from like little help videos to doing like stuff on Sandbox, to covering events like NFT NYC, to interviewing the lead singer of Avenged Sevenfold. We should all be proud.
Incredible.
It's seriously such an experience and such a wild ride that we've been on. Like, you know, who would have thought when we joined like 6 months ago or whatever, or 5-6 months ago, we'd end up here. You know, we've learned so much. We've helped others to learn so much. And just imagine what we're going to do like a year from now, looking back at this, or you know, just in the future when we come back and see just how far we've come from this. Like, we ain't even started, and I love that.
Yeah, and we should just be proud of each other and ourselves. Like you say, I mentioned before to friends or to people in the Discord that when the ITE got announced, I was like, oh, I'm going to try check this out, and I looked at it, I got confused and thought, this is just not for me. And 6 months later, I've been interviewed them Shadows. It's amazing. I'm going to try not to ramble on too much, but yeah, I'm happy with what we've achieved. We've done great. So that's it. So yeah, I guess to end it all for the final time, cheers for those that tuned into this episode. Extra thanks to those that have been here from the start. Minting is less than 24 hours away for pre-sale if you're on the whitelist. We guys at the Seventh Lair podcast, thank you and wish you the best of luck on the mint. Take care.
Good luck, guys.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Get lucky.